Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of the Launch Sequence Podcast. Episode 18. We've been here for a little while now, but this episode's going to be different from the other ones. We've got a special one today. I've got Taige, Roger, and Jack with me here from the Adrift series, which has just made its premiere over on YouTube this week. It's an amazing series. If you haven't seen it yet, you're going to have to go see it after this, but we're going to talk a little bit about it today. We're going to talk about what it's like to film these things in game, Machinima as a whole, and the personal journey of these three. So, how you guys doing?
Great, man. Thanks for having us, Keenan.
Yeah, of course.
Awesome.
I will, and for anybody who doesn't know, my name is Keenan, so if you hear them call me that's not another person, that's me. So give me the lowdown. You guys, we got a writer, a director, and a producer here, I believe.
Yeah, I would say the kernel of this whole project was really Roger and I have been gaming together and running guilds and played the old Counter-Strike and just sort of been playing games together for so long. And we always talk about making a project because I'm in film and he writes, and we'd started a couple things and didn't finish them, and the opportunity to create something in Star Citizen once FOIP was in was like, we just have to do it.
Okay, yeah. So FOIP was a pretty big push then to get this kind of rolling.
Yeah. Well, to be full disclosure, we actually were planning to do something before FOIP was a thing. But just because of the first-person nature and the drama, we felt like we could tell a really cool story in the space. But once FOIP came along, it was definitely a huge boost to like, we should definitely do this.
Yeah, it's kind of like we didn't know what we didn't know. We didn't really know that was coming, I think, at a certain point in time, and suddenly it's here. And I remember Taige telling me a couple of years ago, this is coming. We need to really be ready for it. And it hit. And, it took a little while for it to, I think, get smooth, but we're able to get some good stuff now. It's
definitely had some growing pains.
It still does.
Yeah. We will definitely be talking about that later. Before we get...
Oh, good. I need therapy.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm sure you guys have some venting to do, so I'd love to hear about that. Before we get too deep into it, like I said, for anybody who hasn't seen this yet, I do want to drop a clip in here. This is for all the people watching on YouTube. Just so you get an idea of what we're talking about.
Darkness falls right into you. It never leaves a trace. Let's go, bro. Come on, girl. Yeah. This is your part. Fighting. You know it.
You are killing me.
What? You like this song?
Yeah, I like it when they sing it.
I sing just like them.
No. And it's all you sing, this song. This song is it.
All right. I won't sing.
Oh my God.
And for anybody who is listening, didn't get to enjoy that clip, but just to give you some context, because again, if you haven't seen it, there's a lot going into this project, and so far we haven't done it justice. I haven't freaked out. I'm freaking out in my head, keeping it together until the end. So talk a little bit about, I guess, the challenges besides FOIP, the challenges of filming something in a game like this. I mean, you said you're in film, and Roger, you're in writing outside of it. I mean, you guys must be doing projects outside of games. How did everything change when you brought it into Star Citizen?
Oh, let's count the ways. You know what? Sorry, Roger, you go ahead.
No, no, you're great. I was just thinking about, I would say the biggest challenge rotates around the fact that I think when you're doing a real quote unquote film, you have a set, you have a known quantity. I'm sure there are unknown things like weather, if it's an external scene, and other things that are unknown that can happen, that can alter plans.
Sure.
But for the most part, you have control over the environment and what you're going to show. And so if you have a really clear-cut plan and a shot list and everything, you can manage your time very well. I think all of that is upended when you play in an environment like a video game, particularly an alpha video game, and particularly one where it's multiplayer, where other people can come into your space and blow you up, or there's a lot of variables, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of variables outside your control, from bugs to just the fact that it's a video game. I think that's the biggest thing.
We definitely arrived on set one time, which takes quite a while because we have to get the derelict mission first, and like hopefully it's in the right side of the planet and all that stuff. But like we finally get there, and you can imagine getting 3 people all on the same server and FOIP working and all those things correct. And then Ben, one of our editors, came flying in. He's not a great pilot, and just like crashed right into the mall and just exploded everybody. And it's like, it's so funny. And if you're playing a game, it's like, oh man. But if we're trying to work, it took us probably 2 hours that night to get to that point, just like logging in, finding the mission, all that stuff. So it has those frustrations, but also, we, like I said, we have a little PTSD perhaps from like trying to work in the environment, but at the same time, I don't want to focus too much on that. It's like, people mostly don't care that things were really hard and annoying to make. They only care if it's good. But it definitely had challenges, and my approach was to think of it as a film set and to try to not let the frustration bring down the team, but to see the interruptions and malfunctions as just sort of like, these are the things we have to deal with if we want to do this project,
Part of the set. Yeah, that's a good way to say it.
I think a lot of listeners and viewers, a lot of people actually in this community here on the Discord they dabble a little bit, make videos here, take some screenshots there, and some of them get really into it, get very deep. People like Mr. Hazga, who I'm sure you've heard of, he spends tons of time on a single shot, and many others. So a lot of people, I think, can relate to the pain that you feel. You guys have probably got it on a much larger scale with some of the complexity of these shots, but I'm just some of the highlights for me were things like one thing that you mentioned, the lighting, the fact that you were able to get such consistent and such great lighting in a place that's constantly moving. People don't really think about that. And that was very good.
Thanks. We had, often what's so sad is the ships don't shine lights through the front of windows, which is probably great for gameplay. But so we'd have to have a player outside the window shooting a light in, like to film Emmett. And the desync issues would make his camera, him just sort of like shake around and look in the wrong place. But and some of that's in the film. I just try to like minimize some of that as much as possible, just because as a viewer, you don't want to be taken out. So that's why we did so many takes and kind of tortured ourselves over it.
Right. Well, let's take a step back real quick. I actually want to hear about your involvements with Star Citizen before the film. Did all of you play? Were all of you fans, or did you kind of get into it because of this?
Not all of us. It was me. I was a fan. I got in pretty early and just tooled around in the hangar when it was just the only thing available. I got the Avenger first, and I upgraded to the Freelancer, actually, because we were thinking of maybe shooting something, so we needed a multi-crew ship. So it was originally, we were sort of testing around in the Freelancer before we figured they should be miners when the mall came out. And anyway, I dabbled in it and loved it, and it's hard for me to get super invested in a game if there's not a persistent, like if things are going to wipe in a couple months, like earning stuff kind of feels not meaningful to me, even though it's all meaningless. It's just a game. But so it's hard to me to really get into it, but I'm a huge fan, and I've looped all these guys into doing this with me and
dragged them in.
Yeah,
I remember Taige dragging me in a couple years ago, I think it was, and we did some test shots, but I only really joined for the project. But once I was in, later once I was in, I was really hooked to it and saw the value. But the first time, I was so bad, I couldn't even like lift off the platform. I remember crashing and trying. It was just so bad. And do you remember, Taige? Like, I forget what planet. It must have been Hurston or something. And we got into your ship, and you opened up the back of it. Which ship was that again? It was the Freelancer?
It might have been the Avenger.
And so I'm sitting there, and we're like 10 like maybe 6,000 feet up or something, and I'm like, hey, can I just jump out? And so I just jumped out, and I plummeted. It took me like 5 minutes to plummet to my death, and it was, and I'm
Just
like,
sat there falling.
I don't know if I'm ready for this. And
dude, I was trying to catch him. I was flying straight down to the planet, like trying to line up the back of the, because I was like, this will be a phenomenal clip if you make it. But we missed it.
It's such a, I've seen that I think once or twice. So hard to do, but it's cool that you can.
Yeah, I mean, amazing.
It took a while for me to get hooked into it, but yeah.
And it's been tough, I would say, up until just recently for new players to get a little more of a comfortable experience getting into this. So back then, I don't blame you for kind of taking a step back. That was tough. I think it's super interesting that you guys have it sounds like some of the team came into Star Citizen to do something not related to playing the game, when a lot of people, especially who watch my content, who follow this podcast, are people who are really into the game itself. And I think that's something that a lot of people could take from this story, is that people are going to be coming to this game because of the things it offers, not just to play. Is this something that you guys see doing in the long term, even past Adrift, if things go well?
Yeah. I mean, we'd love to launch a studio, make Barely Enough Monkeys something that can produce content for whatever's kind of striking our fancy at the moment. But the idea to produce for Star Citizen, and it's funny, I kind of feel this like it's like, oh, these actors, are they players? Like, why are they doing this? But really, it's my passion. You know what I mean? Like, I work in the industry. My wife is a working actress. She's not like, we haven't made it or whatever, but she works and she knows people. So to make the project, I just was like, I want this to be so effing rad. So I was just like pulling out all the stops. I was like, who can you get that would be in this or willing to do, a weird video game movie? Because it's something they've never heard of. So it took some prodding, and but she did a movie with the Emmett voice actor, Ben Dickey, a great movie called Blaze. She was a small character in it, but they formed a friendship. And so, it's really, I just want to employ like every skill I've learned over the past 10 years in corporate media, and the, connections that I've made just from working to try to bring that into Star Citizen. And also what I think is, I want to appeal to people outside of Star Citizen. I want, someone who's just a sci-fi fan be like, whoa, what the hell? Like, this is the game. Like, I feel like that's a great opportunity.
I am completely on board with you. I've got ideas of my own that I want to do to try and branch out, because I do feel like the way that Star Citizen is seen as a game, while it could sound a little cliche, I think people could also look at it as a tool to create things like what you're talking about, to not just experience what Star Citizen has to offer, but kind of bring that sci-fi experience in a way that you can't experience with a movie. You can't just watch it. You can also be inside of it and experience it. So that's you're trailblazing, man. I like that. That's very cool.
Well, and I think that, I love the reunion, the movie that Star Citizen produced, and I love all the stuff they make. They're so rad, like all the commercials and stuff. But at the same time, I'm like, man, what if that was shot in game?
Yeah.
Like, don't you think the audience would be like showing it off, being like, look at this. This is in the game, as opposed to like, look at this short film this company made that's about a game that I play. So for us, there's just something more connected about shooting it in the live game.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. So what are the challenges? I can understand kind of directing and writing would have a little bit of a change in between going from, real life into a game. How does producing change from a real film into something that's being filmed inside of a video game? I actually don't know much about the producing role as it is already. So what kind of stuff do you have to do in that position for a game like this, or a project like this?
Well, I would say, and Jack, you can just stop me as the producer, but it's kind of like a very similar approach. We knew that we wanted story first. We knew we wanted a storyboard and record great performances first. We sort of did this like very layered approach that was very typical to normal productions. I think probably more normal to animation productions because we built an animatic with the storyboards and kind of got the pacing and the timing and the performance in place before we were capturing in Star Citizen, because we knew capturing in Star Citizen is very robotic and technical and difficult. So once we had good performances, we could really obsess over, capturing a good moment that would articulate that emotion correctly. And the FOIP, redo the FOIP 100 times or whatever, because we couldn't put the actors through that.
The FOIP, yeah. So
Yeah,
you guys,
I agree.
you guys went and redid the FOIP yourselves and did the vocals after, or rather brought them in later?
The vocals first. We would record with the vocals. We'd have like playback, and we'd time and emote and try different things, because you kind of have to experiment, because some things don't work well once you like try them.
Yeah, I was actually gonna say, I imagine you guys had to make some pretty weird facial expressions to get the right looks in the video. Huh?
Well, and sometimes you capture your face, like you kind of like have your eyes a little closed or your mouth a little bit open, so that the default will have its mouth closed.
Yeah, makes for some good B-roll.
And not to get too deep into production differences, but we had a very new, and this isn't to normal film, kind of production structure. We had a tier that we would sort of like, if we can score optimum situation A, which is the derelict is found and we can get on the server and FOIP is working, we're going to shoot this shot. If we can't find the derelict in an hour, then we're going to do these internal shots at the mole. So we sort of had, and Jack and everyone just had to create this complicated schedule that
prioritization lists, really.
Yeah. Sorry if that's boring, but
that's actually some of the most insightful stuff I think I've heard about doing something like this. Being able to,
all right, good.
Because, like I said, a lot of the things that happen in this game people don't think about, and like you said, there are a lot of things that can happen that you would never plan for, like people coming and blowing you up. So being able to
getting
have
a crime stat and going to jail.
Yeah, exactly. Getting a crime stat, running out of oxygen, like anything. So having that sort of those backup shots.
Yeah. We had like
I think
3-tier plan.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I think it does have a good similarity. I mean, if we truly were trying to film something like this in the actual environment, like flying to space, right? It's going to take way longer. It's going to be way harder and way more expensive.
True.
Very dangerous.
So, it is akin to that. Another benefit, though, was the fact that, we didn't have to fly across the country to do these shots and to take these reshots. Like we could sit down in the comfort of our homes to make it happen, which was really cool. But then when it comes to hiring talent, for example, like a videographer, there's not many people out there that know how to shoot footage in a beautiful way inside the Star Citizen universe. So we had to become, not we, but, Taige and Roger had to become great videographers, and puppeteers, and really, trailblazing this for us. Like they could offer their services as videographers now.
Right. That's what I was thinking. I might hire you guys.
I won't do it.
Yeah, I bet you got to pay a lot for that. It's easier to run a camera in real life.
I'd love some camera upgrades. I'm sure. I understand that it's low priority and should be. But it's what
we have a wish list. That's for sure.
Oh gosh, I mean, don't get me started on cameras. I rage about this sometimes on my live streams. So the people who are listening probably know, but there are a lot of things, and like some of the things. Let's say like the fact that the camera is kind of physicalized but tethered to your body, so you can't get around angles. That's one of the worst ones, right? But it makes sense because they don't want people to just fly their camera away, find where somebody is, and do all that stuff.
You're gonna bring out the beast talking about that camera.
They had some updated concepts a few years ago, which you can say for a few things in this game. We still haven't seen them actually come into the game, but they know it's a thing. Just like you said, I guess it's low priority. I wish it was high priority though.
Server meshing. Go ahead, do that first, please.
Yeah, exactly. I will gladly take that first.
Yeah.
So going to the story itself, because I think this was a phenomenal story. And it reminds me, well, first there are some of those callbacks. People love the music, the comms, and the general sense of people grinding away in a hard life to make it in space. But the story itself was something that I actually remembered thinking about while watching The Expanse. And there was one line in The Expanse where somebody said something about being a salvager. And my mind went off for like 10 minutes. And I was like, oh man, imagine in Star Citizen being a salvager and having this whole life and doing all this stuff. And then you guys captured that like perfectly in just one part, 14 minutes. You got more parts coming. Where did that story come from?
Roger.
It started with the relationship. Actually, Taige, I think you and I, it kind of started with the end. It all started with the kernel of what if we had them find somebody that later harms.
Well,
or
I don't know. Spoilers are fine.
Oh yeah, no, okay.
True.
Yeah, we don't.
Light spoilers.
I'm just trying to say things that we could deduce from the first.
Yeah, we started with the premise, but then Roger wrote this great relationship.
Yeah, and then it became about the father and daughter, and a lot of that came from backstory, right? I've had to think, okay, who are these people? Where does he come from? Are they going to be? I think now I love a lot of what people do out there in Star Citizen Machinima is have amazing space battles, amazing gun battles and things. But I'm like, what if you just had these two common people, right? And so we purposefully dialed it back, I guess, and lowered the level from an Avenger down to a common person, they
didn't even have guns on their hips. They're just miners.
The only thing that's fired is a mining laser in the whole episode, at a rock. And so we developed backstory on who this father was, what was his rearing like, who was Pearl's mom, all of that, and what would their relationship be like over years of trying to scrap things together. And I hope it comes across. You get a sense they have this ship. It's not paid for. It's in maybe a step for them where they're trying to, make it further. But Pearl is done, right? She's spent a lot of her life doing this, and she's with her dad, right? We think of people of that age now, 20 or whatever, and it's like, no, I want to leave home. I wanted these things, and she's stuck grinding. And so I think that forged the basis of a lot of it, and it seemed like, and originally it was going to be salvage, but in the game, it seemed like the mining mechanic seemed more developed and something that we could work with better. And so we altered it to mining. But that does say something about writing with this. You asked about how this machinima or inside of a video game affects aspects of production and writing. It definitely affects writing. I think a lot of what I would do is sort of brain vomit onto a page, all the things that we could do and and have this plot. And then as a team, we get together and say, okay, we can't do that. We can't do that. We can't do that. Or let's alter this. And we talk about what's the kernel of what we brain vomited, right? Mm-hmm. This is the aspect. This is the element of story we want to capture. So how can we alter that so that it works within Star Citizen, so that we can display this? And so that altered a lot of our trajectories to make it what it ended up being.
I see. I can imagine that the way this seems like something that's a little more long term. I don't know how long you guys spent on this project, or rather this first part, but I can see how part 4 could be completely different in terms of the fidelity of animations and features and things that you're doing. So trying to write all of that in as you go, and they're adding features, that must have made things quite difficult. Did that end up causing you to have to go back and redo the story at all, or redo shots because they were changing mechanics?
I wouldn't say the writing so much yet, but it did affect our filming.
Okay.
Right, Taige. Like, I remember, for example, the mole, if you remember, the mining HUD was a different look and feel completely. So we had filmed a lot of Pearl mining and blowing up some asteroids and stuff. And then we knew we still needed more footage, and then they changed the mining HUD. And so it was like, all right, well, here we go. Let's dump all that off and let's refilm that. That's just one example, but that has affected us.
Right.
But I like to think lore-wise that maybe the ship has like a firmware auto upgrade system. So like while they're out working, like the system just upgrades to the new Argo UI. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
People always talk about
possible.
People always talk about including that in the lore. Like when they upgrade the ship models, instead of getting rid of the old ship, they're just like, oh yeah, just call that, the model from a couple decades ago. Do the same thing with the software.
Totally.
Yeah.
So going back to the idea of filming in Star Citizen, do you see any other games having the capabilities? Maybe not quite the amount of freedom that this one does, but other games that you would consider filming something in, or is it pretty limiting? I know a lot of people use Unreal Engine 5 now to create these environments.
Grand Theft Auto, right, has a pretty good filmmaking mode that I've heard. A lot of people make machinima out of that, but I haven't played with it too much.
I mean, I think we could do it in a lot of games because I mean, Star Citizen is the state of the art as far as I can see. Like, the face capture is not the same on any platform, and just the ability to be in a spaceship and then outside of it and then on a planet, like, that's not really anywhere, but that's also not totally necessary in filmmaking. Mm-hmm. But for us, like, we really played to what we thought we could do well, which was like telling a more complicated story and smaller character story. We knew we could get good performances. And, if we focused on another game, it would be another like reassessment of like, what can we really bring that's like not really out there yet? And, so we think about it.
Mm-hmm.
I think the ultimate platform in my mind, and I've talked to Taige about this, is something like Minecraft, honestly, where you have absolute flexibility to create whatever world you want, and then you can film within that. I know it's, a silly interface and there's a ton of Minecraft out there, but the concept of it being a foundation that you can Legoize, I guess, into whatever you need. And I think that's one really cool thing about Star Citizen is because it's so open. I mean, yes, you have amount of ships and you have, these things you can do, but because you can step out of your ship and walk right on the surface and you can film that happening, that is amazing storytelling wise, so it's a really broad platform for that.
Yeah.
And I think the platform would need to have similar features. Go ahead, Taige.
I was just going to say, officially announcing also, just so you guys know, the next episode will be in Minecraft. So
yeah.
Oh. Okay, there's the spin, the twist.
We're gonna make it really easy.
Drifting into Minecraft.
She wakes up. I'm gonna give a spoiler, Taige. She wakes up and she's in a lava, or she's in the end, whatever it's called.
She doesn't have fingers.
Yeah.
Just a block hand.
It's a whole
can't speak anymore.
Dream experience.
Oh gosh. Well.
Yeah, but seriously, like if Star Citizen wanted to open up another revenue stream, this could be a potential where, you're not coming into game, you're coming in to build, to put together films. Like they could literally offer their services in that way. Yeah.
So that's an interesting avenue because some people view this as being like a Second Life sort of thing. Some people view this as being basically truck simulator in space. And like everybody kind of looks at it as, and that's why I called it kind of a tool earlier, because everybody's looking at it as a way to do so many different things. The ability to come in and make a film. Do you think? So you mentioned earlier that Grand Theft Auto is really big for this stuff. Machinima has a big following. I mean, some series have gone onto mainstream. Red versus Blue is one that many people know. Do you see that crowd coming to Star? Do you think they'll put up with kind of the stigmas, the problems, the never-ending development that you could be seeing for 3 or 4 more years? You think people will look past that and start to come and make these films like you have?
Well, it's going to get better, right? Like already since we started filming, we used to get a lot of 30Ks. It was like we'd be on a half-hour 30K. It was like pretty annoying. But by the end, we could be on for 3 or 4 hours. So, and they're releasing an update. So I hope so. And the technology that would make it all work better is in the works. So we're hoping to, we kind of wanted to make a statement piece and kind of invite people in, be like, look how freaking rad this can look. Like, come on in.
Yeah. There are some healthy projects too. There are a couple machinimas that are already out there in Star Citizen. I'm helping out in one, the Bounty Hunter, if anybody wants to check that out. But
cool.
There are a lot
Just killing it. We were talking about Overclocked last night. We really love that Machinima as well.
Overclocked. I haven't actually seen that one. I'll have
Yeah,
to check
it's
that
good. Great voice acting.
Cool. Yeah, there's a lot of that's something that's really amazed me is like you said, it's been difficult to film in this game for a while, but the amount of already top-notch machinimas we see come out of this game compared to other games is just like what are we gonna get when this game launches in terms of
could you imagine
films? Yeah,
I heard they were working on the animation of the interacting with the like switches and stuff on the ships. Man, I was like I can already imagine like 4 scenes using those little button clicks.
Things like physicalizing the inventory, being able to move components in and out of the ship, just all of these things that don't even really give you that much of a gameplay advantage, but really do flesh out the sort of stuff that would help with a film. That's exciting stuff. I imagine that's really exciting for you guys. Do you have any? Well, actually, I'll ask you that at the end. First, how plenty of people see this kind of stuff, and maybe they don't have what it takes to get into it long term or to put a ton of effort in. But if they wanted to somehow get involved with machinima, with filming in game, with doing that kind of stuff, what would be your guys' suggestion for those people just to start out, kind of a beginner level sort of thing?
Well, if I were to give advice, well, there's all kinds of different advice I would give in that idea. Depends on what they're doing. If they want to make money, I'd give certain advice.
Just for
if
fun.
they want to just make something good.
Yeah.
I would say don't make your story in Star Citizen. I'd say craft your story outside of Star Citizen and then work it in, because if you're in your cockpit and you're like using FOIP and you're trying to like say a line or create a scene, like it's going to have this awkwardness to it that's really hard to take out of it. But if you craft something ahead of time that you already like and already has good things in it, then you'll be adding, and also a lot less walking. I think Machinima has too much walking.
I was about to say that, and I think that comes down to, again, what you said, Taige. Story first, and don't restrict yourself to just the things that look good. And I say that meaning like walking and filming yourself walking in this amazing environment around that you're walking, whether it's on a planet surface or on a ship or whatever. It looks cool. But that ends up being a healthy portion of a runtime of a lot of the machinimas. It's just some person walking, where you read a novel and you rarely have a person just walking and you're reading about them walking. You got to get to the moments that matter. And even if those moments don't look as cool as the cool space environment or the planet's surface, that's okay. Your viewer is going to be more interested in what's happening and what's invested in the characters than they are about the visual.
Yeah, that's a good point. And getting creative with it. One of the scenes I really loved from your guys' film was when she was getting out of the mole to go mining, and you kind of set it up to the point where it looked like she was just going to hop out of the mining cabin, and you did this really nice camera cutaway to a shot you had already had, and instead she was floating out away from the ship. It was perfect. I loved that.
Oh, thanks, man. You know, a choice born of necessity, because if you jump out of the ship, you like teleport 10 feet below you. Just
or like the ship explodes or something.
But, you know, we knew we could make the scene work with sort of like these wider, sweeping, beautiful shots.
Yeah. And there were a few shots. Actually, I wanted to ask, if you don't mind giving up any of your secrets, how did you get the shot at the end of the person reaching out? Yeah,
well, I don't mind sharing secrets. It's some pretty simple stuff. You know, the arm can't reach up like that. Right. So I actually positioned the camera down at the character's arm, and I flew like downward and toward the engine with just the arm. And since I'd already created sort of like my own HUD, I recreated my own HUD in Photoshop so I could play with it a little bit. Then I could like put the HUD up there and make it look like she's first person looking out and her hand is reaching up. But
that is so
movie
good.
magic.
That is so good.
A little bit of movie magic, just a little sprinkle.
Oh man, you got it though. That's like, I was sitting there, I'm like, man, how? I was like, did they just like copy and paste an arm onto the screen?
That would have probably been easier.
But then the lighting was so good, so I couldn't figure it out. But thank you for.
Cool, man. I'm glad you liked it.
Oh yeah, I loved it. There was one final question I wanted to ask, which is kind of what I just asked. But were there any interesting Easter eggs that you guys wanted to point out to people that maybe people would have missed, or if there are some
one
that you
thing
want
I think
to put
is
in?
important.
Mm-hmm.
Tage, I need to tell everyone this. So there's a point where Emmett picks up a dead body and he's like carrying it back to the mall. That's me. I'm the dead guy. That's pretty good.
That's the Easter egg. It's Jack is the dead guy.
All right.
I have one. It's not really
one
an
funny
Easter-
thing.
you go ahead.
Oh boy, we all want to tell secrets now. One thing that's fun to think about, I think, when you watch it again, is that Roger plays Pearl most of the time as a puppeteer, and he's so good at it.
Very good.
Oh, thank you.
The actually, yeah, her facial expressions were incredible. When I was watching, let's see, there were a couple scenes. There was one when he was singing and the camera moved over to her and she says something, something funny. It was pretty good, but her facial expression looked like a real person. And I don't know, that might be the game, that might be your own ability to do VoIP or FOIP, but then when they got to the special message, we'll say, towards the beginning of the third act, I was like, wow.
Nice. Well, I'll tell you, neither of those are Roger. So maybe Roger's not the best VoIper.
No, the one when he was singing, that was me.
Okay.
You were singing, and Tanner was Pearl in that shot.
Oh no! In the very first, when the large cut goes when it goes from his face all the way down to her, and she's like, "You're killing me." Yeah, that was Tanner. But later, when she's like, "Oh my God," when she's talking, that was
okay.
Not that I have to take credit for that. I'm just
to be honest, none of it was bad. None of it was bad. So
thanks, man.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
My favorite spot, that it's so subtle, but it makes me laugh every time, and it talks a lot about Pearl's character, is when she's in the cargo bay and Dad catches her, right? And then he's like to the crew quarters stat, and then the next shot you see her floating in the hallway and she's holding the box of illegal goods. And I every time and it's far away, she's falls along through the hallway, but she's holding that box, and it just makes me smile every time. It's so Pearl.
She's like, I'm still following the rules.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, that is, I think this was a great first part. Set up the characters, set up a really gripping story, and it just did a great job overall of dragging people in, or rather of pulling people in. I hope that it gets around more, and I hope this helps a little bit. I want to thank you guys so much for being on here. It's been an absolute blast. It was a great conversation. I loved learning about this. I think a lot of people could learn about this stuff. And if there's anything else you guys wanted to leave to the audience, say about the film, anything at all, feel free. Go ahead.
Thanks, Keenan. Just to share it, if you like independent media and you like user-generated content, please. We're just trying to get it around and get a healthy response. Follow us on Twitter, at Adrift Series.
Yeah, I would just say that. Thanks for watching, and it's just been a big labor of love for us. There has been nothing more gratifying than the last 2 days or so. Yeah, 3 days now, I guess, since we released it, and just hearing the comments and the great feedback. We've gotten a couple of really great emails, and this is the moment this week that's made it all worth it. All the 30Ks are now, you forget about them because of this week, so...
And then you get on to the next one in more 30.
We had that conversation yesterday. Taige and I were like, okay, I guess we have to start making plans.
Oh, man. Well, you got a lot of new stuff to play with for the next one.
Yeah, right on.
Well, all right, guys. Again,
thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you again for coming on here, and I hope we do get a chance to talk again in the future. I love the series, and I want to see where it goes. Everybody who came to listen or watch, thank you so much for tuning in. This has been episode 18 of the launch sequence. As always, you can subscribe on YouTube if you're watching here, or you can subscribe and follow on Apple, Spotify, wherever you might be listening to the audio podcast. Please do, though, consider leaving a rating and possibly a review. That being said, That's it for this week's episode. I will see you all next week for a nice little pre-Citizen Con show. And thank you again for coming.